Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Greenwave TV, alternative media television. It is, of course, April 25th, 2013. Before we get started today, please support our sponsor, CampingSurvival.com. Again, that's CampingSurvival.com. Enter promo code GREEN with an E WAVE. That's GREENWAVE with an E, and get 5% off your next purchase. Also, like them on Facebook, like this video that you're currently watching, leave us a comment, and enter a raffle for this really cool Voyager radio in blue. We'll be raffling this off at the end of the month. So please support them. I always talk about supporting the Liberty economy. By supporting them, you're supporting us, and you're supporting Liberty. Thank you. Hey everybody, good to be back. This is round two, part two of the live broadcast. I just did an hour-long broadcast. We realized after publication that it had some technical difficulties. We weren't getting any sound. So we believe to have figured that out. So unfortunately, I can't reproduce exactly what I just went through with you, but I'm sure as heck going to do my best job to do that. And the reason for today's video isn't to necessarily rehash the same points that we have already made. And I've put out, AMTV's put out 10, 15 plus videos on what we believe and what I personally believe to be the largest false flag in American history, the Boston terror attack that killed 3 people, including an 8-year-old child, and wounded dozens of others. But it's specifically to drill in on some of the key bullet points that have come out after the fact. And we've had a few days to digest some of the information, and there's some very big driving points and specific bullet items that I want to go through with you line by line. Still a tremendous amount of unanswered questions, and again, this has smelled dirty from the very beginning, in my opinion. Warrants a full-blown independent investigation by a third party. I have every indication to believe, as many as of you out there do as well, to believe that the FBI was directly involved in this act of terror. And I'm going to go through some of these reports in just a minute. So we're going to allow the room to fill up here a little bit. Please share this, get this out, tweet it. We're live right now. Again, this is the second broadcast. We're having some technical difficulties on round one. Please make sure to get this out to as many people as you can. And I can't stress enough how important it is. And as I said in our last video, I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that there's not times where I'm not fearful putting out this content to the viewing public. And anybody says that they're not fearful at times is lying to you, because what I'm about to show you is dangerous information. But in my opinion, it's also the truth, and it warrants an investigation. And if you care at all about the people that died, you will hold our politicians accountable. You will ask questions, and there should be demanded by the American people a full investigative report. So I hope this broadcast is working the second try. Let me go to the split share screen here. A couple things that I want to show you. So, of course, all of our videos are posted on both our websites, amtvmedia.com as well as greenwave.com, so make sure to check both of those out. That's where we also have all of our content and the latest update sourcing of all of our material. We've also put together a playlist on the Boston Marathon bombing, on the Boston Marathon explosion. Very easy. It's all in a convenient place. You can run through all of the broadcasts in sequence. Please like it, please share it, and get this very important information out to the American people. First thing I wanted to go over today was Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck came out on Friday, said that he had very big news and very big information that he was going to break to the American people. And he basically alluded to the fact that this would be the biggest news story he broke in his entire career, could potentially be bigger than September 11th. So he left us with this real big tease. You know, like, what you gonna get for us on Monday, Beck? And what he did report on Monday, and of course we've had a few days to digest this, thumb through some of the documentation he cited, etc. And I'm looking at a Yahoo News article here. It says, Glenn Beck, conspiracy theory. What's his evidence? And that's the big question mark. It says Glenn Beck has spent lots of time in recent days alleging that the Boston Marathon bombing was carried out by a conspiracy that revolved around a shadowy Saudi national questioned by police in a Boston hospital in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy. And it goes on and on here. He says he does. Unsurprisingly, on his show Wednesday morning, Mr. Beck produced a document that he claimed is an official U.S. event report, showing that the Saudi in question is a bad, bad man who is on a no-fly list and already subject to visa revocation. And it goes on and on here and talks about that. So what Glenn Beck is talking about specifically is the Saudi national. And again, the narrative on this story has changed many, many times. And that's how you always tell if somebody's lying, is when the narrative changes again and again and again. Note that the mainstream media pointed to several different potential suspects before they ever got to the Tsarnaev brothers, before they ever got to older brother Tamerlan, who was killed, and his younger brother, who is set to stand trial, who has been read his Miranda rights, Dzhokhar. And part of the reason that, as we've uncovered, is that the Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, will not have to answer specific questions because it won't be under her jurisdiction. It's another reason that I think, and many of us think, that they have actually positioned to put this in a traditional court setting and have chosen to read his Miranda rights. But basically what Glenn Beck was insinuating, and he insinuated on Friday, and much of this we had already reported on and already shared with you, was this connection to the Saudi national who was since cleared, then deported by the Obama administration as a matter of national security. So he did it, then he didn't do it, then he's clear, and now we're going to deport him as a matter of national security. Note, and I mentioned this before in our other reports, that this Saudi national also lived at the Revere apartment complex or condominium complex. Revere. Paul Revere. Notice how the Illuminati like to use a lot of symbology. You pick up on this sort of thing. You study this stuff long enough. So Glenn Beck goes on and on here and basically says that he has found a direct link, and he provides documentation on this to show and to indicate that there is more going on behind the scenes, and this is a part of a larger FBI cover-up, linking the FBI with this Saudi national. Bring up another report here. The Boston bombing suspect, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, reportedly unarmed when arrested in boat, officials say. So you can take a look at here. This is the Huffington Post. Two U.S. officials say the surviving suspect in Boston bombings was unarmed when police captured him hiding inside a boat in a neighborhood backyard. Authorities originally said they had exchanged gunfire with Dzhokhar for more than 1 hour Friday evening before they were able to subdue him. The officials, speaking on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the ongoing investigation, say investigators recovered a 9mm handgun believed to have been used by Tsarnaev's brother Tamerlan from the site of a gun battle Thursday night, which injured a Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority officer. Dzhokhar was believed to have been shot before he escaped. The officials now tell the Associated Press that no gun was found in the boat. Let me repeat that. No gun was found in the boat. Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis said earlier that shots were fired from inside the boat. So I apologize for some of the technical difficulties we are experiencing today, and honestly, it's not our fault on our end. Something's suspect with Google and their Hangout. We haven't changed a single setting, but for some reason we got zero audio on the last broadcast, and now I'm seeing that our screen share is acting up. So let me make sure and see if I can't fix that for you. Okay, so here was what I was just speaking to. the Boston bombing suspect, reportedly unarmed when arrested in boat. Now remember, they told us that this younger brother was armed and dangerous. And there was a massive shootout in the streets of Boston, in Watertown, which I believe is a trial run and has been a test run for martial law. It's a way to condition the masses to get used to this sort of thing, to basically bypass the Fourth Amendment. They were illegally searching and seizing people's homes, created a tremendous amount of fear around this event. Remember, this is just a single lone gunman who turns out to not even be armed. That they engage in a massive firefight with clear intent to murder him. And remember, I told you in one of the original broadcasts before this even happened that I would be highly surprised if he came out of this alive, because they do not want him to speak. And as it turned out, he also took a bullet conveniently in the throat. Gives us a new meaning to the whole idea of, the deep throat Watergate cover-up. Now we have a Boston Gate cover-up. Can't talk. We're expected to believe that he's now supposedly admitted to these crimes, et cetera, et cetera. So you can always tell when people are lying when the narrative changes many times, when the story changes. When they pinpoint certain suspects, then clear those suspects. Then pinpoint it at someone else, clear those people. Then they deport one of them as a matter of national security. Now Glenn Beck has more evidence and documentation to support the fact that he was linked to the FBI, and this is a part of a larger FBI cover-up. And again, I believe this to be, in my humble opinion, the largest staged cover-up in the history of America. Bigger, and will prove, in my opinion, to be bigger than September 11th. So we have been fed outright lies. We have been scammed by the mainstream media. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this follow-up video after taking a closer look and digesting some of this news is to emphasize some of these main bullet points, some of the cause and effect that gives the American people every reason to demand a full and independent third-party investigation so that we can seek and find out the truth behind who is responsible for the tragic death of 3 people, an 8-year-old kid and 2 others, and the injury and dismemberment of a dozen others. Now notice how the mainstream media focused so much attention on Boston. More people died in Waco. The blast that happened north of Waco, I don't know the exact number, somebody dropped that in the comment section, but doubled the death count. I know that much. Doubled the death count, in dozens and hundreds, according to reports, injured. Blew out an entire suburb. Blew out an entire retirement complex. Decimated the local population. But notice how that wasn't reported heavily. There wasn't so much emotional attention drawn to that blast. Of course, there's all kinds of evidence to back up that was another staged terror attack to get rid of and to ban black powder and some of these ingredients that go into bomb making that wasn't reported to the DHS. And, now they've got to regulate that in addition to gun control, and they're passing CISPA behind our backs during this giant smoke screen of Boston, implementing martial law, again, conditioning the masses. Now the mainstream media is creating a tremendous amount of confusion around the official narrative, changing the story so many times that the American people no longer know what or who to believe, where they get to the point where they're so satiated by content from the mainstream media and the alternative media that they don't know what to think anymore. They don't know what to believe, so they're left with no conclusion, or they just give up completely. And you see, I desperately do not want to see that happen. Because again, in my opinion, this is the largest cover-up in the history of America. It is the biggest news story and biggest news report I've ever reported on in the history of our organization, AMTV, and alternative media television. And let me reemphasize, if you care anything about the innocent people whose lives were lost, then we will do everything we can as Americans, and those of you around the world, to further investigate and find out the truth for ourselves, what really happened on April 15th, Patriots Day, that shocked the nation and that shocked the world. Now keep in mind, these drone strikes happen all the time overseas. In fact, over the past few days, NATO just completed a strike that murdered over a dozen innocent school children. Nobody's reporting on that because we don't care. The mainstream media has focused all the attention on Boston. 3 lives lost, even though double the death count was lost north of Waco in the fertilizer blast, and there was just 14 or so some people murdered the other day with a NATO strike that was U.S.-led overseas in the Middle East. But again, we are being positioned, and the people are being positioned, and the information clouded to create a state of hysteria, and to create a state of fear, and to create a state of confusion that the people do not know what to believe anymore, and they are left with their hands up in the air, and they just don't know where to go from here. So this story has changed again and again. The official narrative continues to change. Here I want to go specifically, and I want to show you these pictures here. You can see here as I go to the split screen, here is the younger brother getting out of the boat. Remember, we talked about him getting out by his own volition. The officials have now reported, according to the Huffington Post, that, and they told this to the Associated Press, that no gun was found in the boat, no weapon, according to Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis. And remember, they originally told us shots were fired from inside the boat, and that they were engaged in a firefight for over an hour. So that's not true. And you can see here him. So basically, you can see the images here, and there was one where it showed the heat map of his body. You can see this right here. They basically just opened fire with the intent to kill and to murder this younger brother. Probably didn't want him alive. And it's probably why, while after the firefight, they shot him in the throat, or he could have potentially shot himself in the throat. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What we do know is that they obviously don't want him to talk. They don't want this information to get out to the American people, or the American public, or the people of the world. So a major conflict in the official narrative. They lied to us, just like they lied to us initially on who the original suspects were. Now it's come out, now it's been made official, declassified, there was no gun. Which means there was a firefight with just special forces shooting at this younger individual. More lies compounded by more lies. Another reason that this should launch a full, and the American people, the people of the world, should demand a full investigative report. Because, of course, there is massive motive to stage an event like this, not just for gun control, but for the example that I gave you with the fertilizer plant that blew up and, black gunpowder. Mayor Bloomberg came out in recent days, said, you know what, we actually got to change the Constitution now as a result of Boston. So they're going to get rid of the Constitution. They're passing CISPA underneath America's noses, using this as a smokescreen. Just went through the House, now it goes to the Senate. So there is tremendous motive to stage a terror attack like this. And I'm going to get into specific examples in a minute, because this isn't conspiracy theory. I wish it was. But what I was presenting to you wasn't the truth. Because believe me, I realize it's stomach churning. I realize for many of you hearing this for the first time, you don't want to believe it. But again, I'm going to get into the itty-bitty, and the hardcore evidence to show you exactly what I'm talking about. If we go here to the next split screen, you can see that we have a ton of videos, and you can just search this Watertown shootout, which demonstrates clearly the full-blown militarization in the police state that was evident over this search for this single lone gunman. Again, an entire city on lockdown, the illegal search and seizure. People were told to get their hands up, created mass hysteria, mass panic. I'll play one of the videos here. I don't think that you can actually hear anything, but you can see the firefight over here going off. So again, remember, this was a lie. This younger brother had no gun. According to the Boston police chief, nothing, nada, no weapon. He was just sitting in a boat, which we can see from the heat-seeking photography, which obviously they can look at us in our home, so obviously they can see you naked at your home if they want to take a look at you, et cetera, et cetera. A complete lie, a complete falsehood, a complete pretense. And here we have the beautiful, area of Newtown, city of Boston in complete lockdown, and the American people love this shit. They're embracing it fully. And people tell me there is no motive. Look at these people here. There is no motive to stage a terror event like this at all. There's not a gun control bill on the table. There's not, people like Mayor Bloomberg trying to, change our Constitution. I'm going to get to that article in a moment. Label anyone within the truther movement. I'm going to get to this in a moment. A conspiracy nut on the same level playing field as Al-Qaeda, according to people, people insinuating this like Rachel Maddow and other mainstream publications. I'm going to show you evidence of this in just a second. Here we have another link, which is unverified, but this is another question that we all need to be asking ourselves. It says Saudi person of interest is Osama bin Laden's son. And this is what Glenn Beck, he had alluded to the Saudi national connection, that connection with the FBI. You see, the FBI, a lot of the times, 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to go through specific cases here in a moment, stages these events. This is proven, not my opinion, declassified information. You can read this stuff, very lengthy documents on it. Operation Northwoods is a specific example. The underwear bomber that we just had, these bomb foil plots, very specific examples, not my opinion. It's not a conspiracy, it's the truth. Read it for yourself, confirm it for yourself. This follows up on what Glenn Beck was investigating, which we had already reported on through the weekend. So it's kind of funny that Glenn Beck waited so long to actually get this out to the American people. But this article specifically is questioning whether or not there is a link with this person of Saudi interest to Osama bin Laden, and could he perhaps be his son? Now, to answer that question, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't verified that information. But it's another question that needs to be asked and should also be answered and investigated by you, and should be acknowledged. It goes on to say here that Hamza is the son of Kuraya Sabar of Saudi Arabia, one of bin Laden's 3 wives who were living in the Abbottabad compound. Interrogation of the surviving wives of Osama bin Laden by Pakistani intelligence after the raid on the Abbottabad revealed Hamza was the only person missing. He was not among those killed or injured. Now remember, this is one of the individuals that was originally cited as a suspect, the Saudi national. The raid conducted by the SEAL team was thorough. Infrared technology as well as ground troops. Remained confident nobody inside the compound has escaped, etc., etc. I'll let you read this for yourself. I'm not going to go over all of this. But here are some of the pictures here linking this Saudi national who originally was a suspect, who was the terrorist. And they backtrack that. They report on numerous false suspects. They deport one of them. CNN gets the story completely wrong, shows themselves as a complete and utter joke. And just a total embarrassment of the lies that have been and were pitched to us and continue to be pitched to us over the past several days. There's also a video here I saw last night. Rachel Maddow rips Alex Jones, and they're clearly linking this to the truther movement. They are demonizing it. You can see here she's linking it to 9/11 trutherism. You can look at this video. You can search it online. Rachel Maddow rips Alex Jones, InfoWars, conspiracy theories, etc., etc. She basically insinuates that the alternative media, InfoWars, is Al-Qaeda, that this is conspiracy theory, and many pundits from the leftist propaganda media machine, this is how they're framing everything. Is that it's extremely dangerous to be a truth seeker, an American patriot, a liberty freedom lover, a survivalist, any of these things. I'm going to get to a report from the Associated Press here in a moment that actually showed, this is laughable, actually links the older son Tamerlan, the boxer, the good-looking guy with the scarf who supposedly may or may not have been on government-subsidized welfare. So we have a subsidized we had a potentially subsidized, terrorist attack here on American soil. But Other reports tell us and conflict with that, saying that it looked like it appeared that he had money. He was taking these trips overseas, may or may not have been training with other, jihadists or terrorist organizations, etc. May or may not have been set up by the FBI and his brother, as patsies. Again, the FBI has a historical track record of doing this again and again. I'm going to get into these specifics in a minute. But clearly shows us, I've told you this for years, the old saying, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. That's exactly where we are now, but we're at the they will fight you stage. They're no longer ignoring the alternative media. They're no longer laughing, maybe a little bit. Now they're fighting. Now we're clearly engaged in a media war. Websites like the Drudge Report, the #1 trafficked conservative/news website on the planet, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of views a day. Alex Jones Infowars, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of views a day. I can tell you offhand, we've had millions and millions and millions and millions of views over the past few days as we've been putting out this content. We've had more traffic over the past few days and over the past week than we've ever had in the history of bringing this content to the American people and the people of the world. So now that alternative media is on the radar, and this is gaining steam, and the American people and the people of the world no longer trust the mainstream media anymore, or that's the growing position, now they're in full frontal attack mode. They're even going as far as to link alternative media, Infowars, and other alternative media outlets like the one that you're watching, to Al-Qaeda. It's now on the same level playing field. As they said, Tamerlan enjoyed going to the Al-Qaeda Yemeni website, Inspire, and also Infowars. And he was enamored, supposedly, laughable, enamored with 9/11 trutherism. So there is a absolute and obvious agenda here. And it's obvious how the American people, and we are all being propagandized at this very given moment in American history at such a crucial and critical time where there is a huge gun bill on the table, where President Barack Obama clearly intends to violate our Constitution, confiscate guns, create a third-party registry outside of the sovereignty of the United States, using the United Nations to basically put every single American on a list. People like Mayor Michael Bloomberg out of New York saying that because of Boston we now have to change the Constitution. This is up front and personal, up close and personal tyranny, America. I can't show or provide any more specific evidence regarding that than what we're already showing, and I have so many more instances that I'm going to get to here in just a minute. Again, this is a dry run. This is a test run. Get the American people used to martial law on the streets. Get people used to the police state. Get used to the fact that we're going to have special forces, FBI, CIA, local police, fire department, et cetera, on call at all times. And in those situations, even Rand Paul, and there's been argument around it, has flip-flopped a little bit on the issue now, saying, you can kill somebody if he's, walking out of a liquor store, stealing a bag of Doritos and, $50 in his pocket. So I guess that's okay now. We can just start drone striking. Alleged. Again, alleged. We still don't have, and Tamerlan, unfortunately, has died. His younger brother still have not stood trial, haven't proven guilty in a courtroom. There's so many unanswered questions. The nation already wants to convict him. Doesn't even want to look at the evidence. Kill him is what they say. Hang him out to dry. Other people have come out and said, that he should basically just be tarred and feathered, and, we don't even need to look at any evidence. Well, you can't have it both ways, America. And it is times of great peril, which what we are currently engaged in, that we need to be and we need to operate as the watchdog here in America. And we need to make sure and hold our politicians accountable and make sure they do not violate our constitutional civil liberties and our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And they give people like Zheranev and the Zheranev brothers and the younger brother the same right to a trial, to represent himself in front of a jury, to be convicted or proven innocent in front of that jury, and to have proper representation as anyone else, you or me, tuning into this at this very given moment of time. Because this, of course, sets a precedent for all Americans. This sets a precedent for you. This sets a precedent for me, the people that you care about, your family and friends. And this is what the NBA is, folks. This is the NCAA in action today. And again, tremendous amount of unanswered questions here. And what we need to know about these brothers, were they patsies? It appears so. Had the FBI lured them in, as they have a historical track record of doing? I'm going to get to those specific cases in a minute. Judge Napolitano goes over this. You can watch some of his videos. I'm going to show you a link to one if you haven't already watched it, proving 17 out of the last 20 terror attacks here domestically and abroad were actually staged by the FBI. You see, they lure in the patsies. They give them the impression and the idea that they're actually working for a legitimate or training with a legitimate jihadist group or terrorist organization. Then they go out and blow up buildings, or they foil the plot before it happens and go, see, terrorism still does exist in America. And look what a good job we just did, foiling it. So did Boston? Did it somehow go wrong? Were these kids patsies? And of course, I'm going to get to this in a minute. You had Kraft International, or what appears to be Kraft International agents on the scene. Irrefutable graphic proof, evidence, photography. Everyone's got a cell phone. We've got the images showing these people on the ground. Let me get to that in a minute. Here you can see I'm at Infowars.com. You can see a picture here of Alex Jones basically telling the American people that it's extremely eerie for this much attention to be placed on his Infowars and the Infowars team. AP linking the suspect, the older brother Tamerlan, who's now dead, to Infowars, to alternative media, to 9/11 trutherism, to survivalism, and to patriotism. And you can see here, bomb suspect influenced by mysterious radical. Here we go to the AP article. It says bomb suspect influenced by mysterious radical. The radical they are referring to is a person named Misha, and we're still learning a little bit more about whoever this person was, or who this person allegedly was. This is something that Glenn Beck, I believe, has also been talking about in his the Blaze doing their investigation with the link to the Saudi national, the FBI's cover-up, the deportation by the Obama administration once they cleared him, in the change and alteration of the official narrative to this evolving story, which in my opinion has clear and is showing us clear a criminal intent in this case. So we'll look here at this article. It says bomb suspect influenced by mysterious radical. In the years before the Boston Marathon bombings, Tamerlan fell under the influence of a new friend, a Muslim convert who steered the religiously apathetic young man toward a strict strain of Islam, family members said. Under the tutelage of a friend known to the Sarnoff family only as Misha, and again we're learning more about who this individual is, Tamerlan gave up boxing and stopped studying music. He began opposing the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. He turned to websites and literature, claiming that the CIA was behind the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, and they even lumped Jews into here, in Zionism and that connection, and Jews controlled the world, which may or may not be the case. So here we have the Associated Press suggesting that anyone that opposes the Afghanistan or Iraq wars is a terrorist, linked to Al-Qaeda. Anybody that reads literature claiming that the CIA was behind the terrorist attack of September 11, 2001, or that kind of literature, is a terrorist. Anyone that thinks Jews control the world, or that Zionism has had an influence, or has an influence in the political structure of our system today, is a crackpot lunatic, is insane, and is on the same playing field as Al-Qaeda. You, God-fearing or maybe not God-fearing American citizen, person of the world, liberty-loving, constitutionalist, somebody that is interested about the truth, etc., etc. So this is how we are all being propagandized. Then the article goes on as far as to specifically link the alternative media to the older brother, which is honestly absolutely amazing. And you can see here, it says when Misha would start talking, Tamerlan would stop talking and listen. It would upset his father, etc., etc. Tamerlan took an interest in InfoWars, a conspiracy theory website. And then it goes on and on. So it said, they really try to create a link here that, again, 9/11 trutherism, alternative media, survivalism, patriotism, anybody that's a constitutionalist, again, is now the enemy on the same level playing field. This is crazy. And we knew it would always come to this. Again, we're at the media war stage now. They're no longer ignoring or laughing. They're fighting. As all the traffic is moving from the mainstream news. Outlets like the Drudge Report, InfoWars, AMTV are picking up millions and millions of viewers on a daily basis because the people no longer believe the official story. And why should they? I just gave you several examples of how we've already been lied to in this specific case. The narrative has been changed again and again. The suspects changed again and again. The Boston police chief now comes out and says the younger brother wasn't armed, didn't have a pistol, which means there was no firefight. It was just a one-sided assassination attempt. He was just clearly hiding in a boat. And what we want to know is how is the FBI involved with this specific case? Because we know the FBI, time and time again, not my opinion, I'm going to go to this right now, not my opinion, has been directly involved in these staged terror events, in these staged terror attacks. I go here to a YouTube video with Judge Napolitano. Many of you are familiar with him. He, of course, had a very popular TV show on the Fox News network, not the main channel, but he had a very popular show on the pay-per-view channel, which was later canceled, probably because he's one of the few people in the mainstream media that has the cojones and the balls to give you the real and unadulterated truth without censorship. And you can watch this video here. You can search FBI fake terror plot history, Judge Napolitano. It's had quite a bit of views, and he basically and not just basically, but he shows you that 17 out of the last 20 terrorist cover-ups have been orchestrated by the, you guessed it, FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. 17 of the last 20 terrorist cover-ups orchestrated by the FBI. And people call us conspiracy theorists for just asking the question, knowing that the FBI is linked to 17 of the last 20 declassified, now hardcore, unadulterated truth. You can't argue with me. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a fact. Also, you can look at documents, declassified reports like Operation Northwoods. I'm going to get here in a moment. Not a lie. Has shown that the United States declassified that the United States federal government during the Cuban War Missile Crisis had actually was setting the stage where the Joint Chiefs of Staff had written off on all of this, the head of the Army, the head of the Navy, the head of the Air Force, etc., that they were going to stage false flag terror attacks, not only overseas in places like Guantanamo Bay, but also in Washington, D.C., at the White House. And they signed off on this like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, let's go bomb and kill our own civilians so that we can garner support for the war against Cuba. Again, I'm not making this shit up. I'm gonna go to this in a minute. And we are called the crackpot conspiracy theorists, and we are demonized by the mainstream media. People like Rachel Maddow, she's a disgrace. And what a disgrace. And the Associated Press and the Huffington Post linking, Tamerlan to, the alternative media movement or the freedom movement or the truther movement. You are now on the same level playing field. So they're getting dirty, my friends. They're getting dirty. You don't think these people would kill you too? I mean, this is pretty amazing. Amazing, unadulterated, hardcore truth. You can go here. I'm searching. I'm going to screen share with you. You can see this is Operation Northwoods, Wikipedia. I mean, this is not just coming from, the alternative media. This is coming, you can look it up, Wikipedia. Now open up the page here and I'll read some of this to you and remind yourself this is Wikipedia. You don't always get the full truth from Wikipedia. They even admit it. They even admit it here. And you can download all these documents. They're very lengthy. You can read them. You can go through them yourself. I encourage you to do it. Share it with your friends and family. This isn't bullshit. This is the truth. Operations Northwoods was a series of false flag proposals that originated within the United States government in 1962, but were rejected by the Kennedy administration. The proposals called for the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, or other operatives to commit perceived acts of terrorism in U.S. cities and elsewhere. These acts of terrorism were to be blamed on Cuba in order to create public support for a war against that nation, which had recently become communist under Fidel Castro. One part of Operation Northwoods was to develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington, D.C. Operation Northwoods proposals included hijackings and bombings, followed by the introduction of phony evidence that would implicate the Cuban government, etc., etc. This is not bullshit. This is the truth. This is one specific case, a declassified case, Operation Northwoods, where literally the Joint Chief of Staff, the head of the military, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, signed off and were signing off on, yeah, it sounds like a good idea to go kill innocent civilians, bomb places like Florida, potentially bomb places like Guantanamo Bay, and even the White House, and even Washington, D.C., to achieve our political objective. The same thing is happening today, in my opinion, with the Boston bombings, with the Boston terror attack, with the Boston false flag. They've done it before. That's a fact. It's proven. You're an idiot if you don't think that they won't do it again. And again, there is a slew of people within the Truther movement itself, everybody from Andrew Breitbart to the gentleman, his name's escaping me at the moment, who had the very successful FPS Russia YouTube channel. He was a producer. He was murdered. Chris Kyle was murdered. A lot of unanswered questions about Kraft International. I'm going to get here in just a second about why those people were there. Was it his people, or was it meant to look like it was his people, to cloud and to create more conspiracy and more confusion, around what actually happened in Boston in the first place? Again, let me remind you, it's the intent of the mainstream media to cloud everything to the point where you're so confused. Again, you don't know what to believe, mainstream or alternative anymore, or you just give up and you just don't do anything. That's what they want, in action. Kraft International, it could very well have been made to look like they were Kraft International employees. Were they hired to carry out this false flag terror event? Or was it just a staging or an impersonation of Kraft International? Could it have legitimately been Kraft International? Were they, stupid enough to wear the actual military gear? Were they somehow, another question that I had thought of, and I'm sure some of you thought of, were they there to maybe potentially, somehow get back at the American people or the government for the death of Chris Kyle? Was it somehow like a retaliatory event? That could be a possibility. Again, I don't know the specific answer. I don't know the, specific conclusion. I just know that there's a lot of unanswered questions and corroborating evidence that poses a clear and present danger to the American people, and that there's enough causality here to be seeking actively this information, and the American people demanding and asking these pertinent questions and holding our politicians accountable, while at the same time they are changing the Constitution according to Mayor Bloomberg, familiarizing and getting the American people and conditioning them to martial law and the police state within Boston, getting them and positioning the idea in their head that that's a good thing. The massive gun control bill that was shot down at the Senate that Obama clearly once passed, the event in Waco to monitor and to basically register or to outlaw or to ban things like black powder that go into bomb making, et cetera. This goes all the way back to the Oklahoma City bombings. This is tied in with September 11th. This is tied in with 17 of the last 20 false flags. Judge Napolitano, guy who knows what he's talking about, used to be a judge, was taken off the air because he's speaking too much truth. Hopefully he launches maybe an independent channel himself, or, who knows, maybe we'll have him on our show one of these days, so collaborate with us. This is pure, unadulterated, hardcore truth. It goes on here to say Operation Northwoods, Origins and Public Release. The main proposal was presented in a document entitled Justification for U.S. Military Intervention in Cuba, a top secret collection of draft memoranda written by the Department of Defense, DOD, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The document was presented by the Joint Chiefs of Staff to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara on the 13th of March, 1962, as a preliminary submission for planning purposes. The Joint Chiefs of Staff recommended that both the covert and overt aspects of any such operation be assigned to them. It goes on and on here. You can read this. This is something I wanted to actually show you, and I'm not going to read all of this, but I encourage you to read this yourself. The plan, Operation Northwoods, called for U.S. personnel to disguise themselves as agents of the Cuban government and to engage in terrorist attacks on the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay. It also called for terrorist attacks within the United States that would be conducted by pro-U.S. forces disguising themselves as Cuban agents. Let me repeat that. The plan, Operation Northwoods, called for U.S. personnel to disguise themselves as agents of the Cuban government and to engage in terrorist attacks on the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay, also here at home in Washington. It also called for the terrorist attacks within the United States that would be conducted by pro-U.S. forces disguising themselves as Cuban agents. One aspect of Operation Northwoods involved the proposed hijacking of an American passenger plane. The GCS proposed that a real plane containing American passengers would be hijacked by friendly forces disguised as Cuban agents. The plane would drop down off the radar screen and be replaced by a pilotless aircraft which would crash, purportedly killing all the passengers. Under the plan, the real passenger plane would be secretly flown back to the United States. That kind of sounds strikingly familiar, kind of like September 11th, doesn't it? Again, none of this is my opinion. This is the declassified report and documentation of Operation Northwoods. Look it up. Get it out to your friends and family. I realize it's stomach churning. If you're new to this, you don't want to believe it at first. But again, this isn't opinion. It's fact. You just can't argue with it. We go on here. We look at some of the pictures here of the Tsarnaev brothers. The big question that I want to reemphasize again is, how were these brothers involved? Were they patsies? Were they lured in by the CIA, the FBI, into a covert, manufactured, false flag terror operation to stage this event, which has clear political motives, and there's a clear political agenda on the table? Not only have we had Sandy Hook, not only have we had the movie theater massacre killings and the Jared Loughner's out here in Tucson, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have the Boston massacre and the Boston explosion and the shooting and the cover-up, giving Obama and his cartel even more ammunition to destroy the Second Amendment, rape the Constitution, under the guise that we somehow have more security here in the United States, which we know is complete and utter bullshit because we just had bombs go off in Boston. So the Patriot Act did nothing. Everything that the government has done to take away our liberty since September 11th has done nothing. We had a police state in Boston just a few days ago, martial law. They were illegally completing search and seizures, etc. Tons of video footage to show that and to corroborate that as truth, to create this mass hysteria and this very fearful environment for the American people. If you can't see that as motive, you are blind. You are dumb. In fact, leave the room right now because you're an idiot. You're a dumb shit. That's just the hardcore truth. You need to wake up to this, and you need to get this information out to the viewing public and demand an independent third-party investigation and hold our politicians accountable. Now I want to show you the official Craft International website to corroborate some of these images that were on site. Remember, there was a lot of these, this uniform shown. You can see here's the image here, Craft International. Here's Chris Kyle. He was murdered not too long ago. There's a tremendous amount of mystery around his death. Was he assassinated by the president, like Andrew Breitbart, like some of these other people, the FPS Russia, the gun manufacturer? He was another individual that has died. Anwar Awlaki, many of you that have studied understand this. Anwar Awlaki was a double agent working for the CIA. Yeah, if I'm the first person to tell you this, that's the truth. Anwar Awlaki, you know, the guy Obama killed, who also dined at the Pentagon months before they drone striked him, and Obama was, you know, giving a congratulations speech over at the White House. Anwar Awlaki was a double agent. Were these brothers double agents? How is Craft International tied into this? Go back here to the screen share. I want to show you just a picture of Chris Kyle here. You know, you can see a picture of him. Chris Kyle, many Americans believe him to be an American hero. He was actively training, had been actively training militia groups in Texas, also the local police department, government agencies in his local home state. Here's another picture. There he's got the skull and bones cap on, the same cap and gear that we saw at the Boston bombing. Again, that's one of the most important questions that we can ask here is, what was Craft International's involvement? Are they trying to make us think Craft International was involved? Were they really there, or were they hired by the government? There's so many unanswered questions here. So Chris Kyle, of course, no longer around, conveniently dead. I want to go to some of these specific pictures, and this is what I put out in the original report. A lot of our videos, I want to thank you again for sharing them, have gone super, super viral, have had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. Please share them. Please share our playlist. Here you have the two individuals. Here it looked like they've got Craft International gear on. They do have Craft International gear on. They've got the military-grade boots, the camo pants, the black jackets, the backpacks. They're here in their ears talking with some kind of communication device. Could be a detonation device. Here we have the hat here. Let me zoom in so you can see this. Here you got the Skull and Bones cap. It is the same cap we see here. It's the same logo we see here. It's the same logo we see here. And again, to not ask these questions, this isn't made up. This isn't photoshopped. You can't hide this kind of stuff anymore. And it might have been one of the reasons that the FBI placed these individuals, whether or not they wanted them to appear to be from Craft International to create confusion, or they were legitimately hired for the job. I don't know, and we don't know, but you can't argue with this graphic proof. And they didn't want to talk about this. They disregarded this at the press conferences. The mainstream media has disregarded this. You haven't heard Wolf Blitzer talk about it. Nobody talk about it. Here's another one of the Craft International clothed potential suspects wearing the camo pants, the military-grade boots. He's got a detonation device, or what could be a detonation device here, etc. Here are more of these potential government goons. Again, we don't know what the story is here. We don't know what this narrative is. What I'm telling you is we need to find out. You know, it's amazing to me that people think that they're crackpots if they wanted an investigation on September 11th, or that people want an investigation now. If you care anything about the victims and the people that died, you would demand an investigation, and the family members should demand, why are their loved ones dead? You know, what happened? Who are the real culprits? And, you know, that's what I care about. That's what you care about. That's what the alternative media cares about. And again, there's tremendous motive here. Michael Bloomberg is going to change the Constitution. They've passed CISPA. It's arrived in the Senate. I've got a report here from PC World, from Business Insider. So that's been, you know, written off. We've had the DHS arming up. They came out with a report today, said, you know, tight budgets means the DHS has to buy less ammunition now. They've bought hundreds and hundreds of millions of rounds, of hollow point rounds. They're clearly arming up with ammunition, also MRAPs. I cited one in Tucson, almost serendipitously. one day before the April 15th Boston bombing. There are too many unanswered questions here to leave not investigated and to not pose to our government officials. There's enough probable cause to warrant a third-party independent investigation. This should be demanded by the people of America. It should be demanded by people all over the world. It should be especially demanded by the victims of this tragic event. All that we care about and all that I care about is the truth. And I'd be lying to you if I told you that there weren't times that I was fearful of presenting this information to you, because it is very dangerous information. But just because you're fearful, or just because you might be fearful, doesn't mean that the truth should not get out there. And it doesn't mean that we should not act. Again, it is time of great peril where we need to hold to our guns, no pun intended. We need to hold our politicians accountable, make sure they don't change our Constitution, make sure that they uphold our constitutional principles, what founded this country, and that we hold these people accountable, that we do not let them pass CISPA, that we do not allow them to compound the Patriot Act and this other type of legislation that has clearly done nothing to keep us safer at all. We just had a few bombs go off in Boston, killing innocents and wounding and dismembering dozen others. That is enough proof in the pudding for me. Get this information out. Share it to as many people as you can. Please continue to support us. I want to thank you for doing that. Please support our sponsor. Please visit their website, campingsurvival.com. Again, they'll be holding a raffle at the end of the month here for one of their really awesome radios. On your next purchase, enter the coupon code GREENWAVE. That's green with an E, WAVE. You'll get a 5% discount. Again, I talk all the time about supporting the Liberty economy. Support them, you support us, support Liberty, and support the movement. I really appreciate it. I'm Christopher Green. Get this out everywhere. Tweet it, Facebook it, embed it. You have my permission to rip it, re-upload it, do whatever you want with it. Make sure it gets out a million plus times, like our other videos have already been doing and have already been seeding all over the internet and have gone super viral. I'm going to add this to the playlist. And for those of you that just came into this episode, part 2, I'll make sure to attach to this video part 1, because again, I didn't want to repeat everything that we'd already talked about. I wanted to go through the major bullet points, the questions left unanswered, the changes to the official narrative, which to me shows and proves culpability of the FBI being directly involved in this massive staged September 11th, bigger than September 11th cover-up, the biggest story I've ever reported on, the biggest story many within the mainstream and alternative media have ever touched in their entire lives. There is clear motive to propagandize this event, not only to shut down alternative media, shut down the truth movement, but to label it, to associate it with Al-Qaeda, terrorism, and to basically harness this hysteria and panic to rape our civil liberties, rape our Constitution, and quite frankly, that's no different from stepping into my home, your home, outright stealing from us like they did in 2008, trillions of dollars worth of bank bailouts. Now they want the guns. I am sorry. We got to take a stand. This is way too authoritarian. This is way too insane, way too crazy, and it is at times of great peril, as our founding fathers told us, where we need to stand up to the plate and we need to protect our principles, protect our value system. This is a nation founded under God. Whether or not you want to believe that or not, or whether or not you accept that, doesn't really matter. This is a nation founded under God and founded with constitutional principles in mind. This is the republic. This is a republic. And if you care anything about liberty and freedom, you'll get this message out to as many people as you can. Thank you very much. I hope that this second broadcast actually worked. The first one crumbled on us. We've had a lot of strange things happen with our servers lately. I don't know if our websites are getting hacked. I really don't know what the deal is. All I know is we've had multiple videos go down. Multiple videos within YouTube are being censored within the playlist itself. Many of you have already noticed that, sent me the messages. Yeah, I'm aware of it. Honestly, I don't really care right now. I just want the information out to the American people. I can't stress how absolutely important it is. As always, hard-hitting it in your face, I'm Christopher Green. Get it out, my friends. Get it out. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.